without further ado, we're going to kick off our first panel. It's going to be focused on cyber situational awareness, and it will feature Chris Butera, Acting Deputy Executive Assistant Director for Cyber at CISA, Ryan Higgins, CISO at the Department of Commerce, Matt Hayden, Vice President of Cyber and Emerging Threats at GDIT, and your moderator will be Sam Kinch, Federal Field CTO for Tanium. Let's give them a warm welcome.
Can you guys hear me? Everybody hear me in the back?
Test.
All right. Sam Kinch, like you mentioned, we have about 20 minutes, so we're going to roll right into the questions. Not much of an introduction when it comes to us. Matt, I wanted to start with you and the industry side of the house, especially with your work at GDIT. We're in the midst of what I would call an AI-empowered cyber arms race, if you want to term it like that. Organizations are going to have to be empowered with threat intelligence that both enables collaboration but also is relevant to their defense of cyber. You know, with the GDIT, you have a cross-section of a lot of industry, and you're obviously have the opportunity to witness how other organizations are maintaining cyber situational awareness. Can you provide us some insights into what you're seeing, especially when we have AI-enhanced threats like automated phishing or automated or attack methodologies that are being morphed in real time by AI?
Happy to. So the good news is that while we are seeing AI threats across the board, a lot of them aren't compounding AI threats. So for example, as was referenced, you get this automated phishing or really good phishing emails, things like that, and malware examples that take on automated backends but don't do a second thing or a third thing and compound that effort. Because when we see natural human adversaries, their efforts are to get into that network and then to move laterally and then to exploit that data or to disrupt that service. What we're seeing in the AI space is it can do one of those three things with the help of an actor. So it's not fully compounding the challenge yet, but what it does is it sets up a giant Roman candle for folks that you have to be able to receive information that can point you in the right direction at machine speed. If you're not able to react and pivot your defenses or to target your adversary's infrastructure appropriately, you're going to have a challenge moving forward, and AI is a big part of that. So situational awareness really takes on an ability of knowing what good or normal looks like, just like Aaron was talking about with that, the ability to know what your infrastructure looks like from the inside and the outside, and then having the ability to bring those real critical feeds in and have it rapidly adapt at machine speed to the threats that are knocking on your door. So we're seeing across industry a full myriad of maturity. You've got at the SLTT level, we all have heard about water treatment plants. That's kind of our baseline for people with challenged environments. And then you move up from there in different levels of tooling to be able to respond. It really is the line of have and have nots of people who can take actionable CTI and make dynamic change to their network, and it's kind of the way we look at it on both sides.
Part of a good cyber defense has been like the capabilities that we bring to bear to maximize our limited human capital. One of those tools, and Ryan, I'll ask this question of you, has been on the known exploited vulnerabilities list. How it continues to be actually a tremendous situational awareness resource for prioritizing our efforts. In the Department of Commerce, in your role, how has the CAV really helped you address your cyber terrain?
Well, thank you for having me here, first and foremost. I think the CAV catalog has been invaluable within the Department of Commerce as it relates to helping us prioritize mitigation activities and making sure that we're focusing our limited resources on the most important things. Our partnership with CISA has been long-standing, and it's been really tremendous for us in terms of really gaining that increased visibility and insight so that we can fill gaps and ultimately reduce risk across the department. I think one of the challenges with the CAV that is our problem and not CISA's problem is making sure that with something that's so routine, we don't grow complacent and that we stay vigilant in making sure that we're taking everything seriously as opposed to just assuming that it's business as usual. So in summary, CAV catalog has been a huge, huge benefit for the Department of Commerce. However, we cannot just rest on our laurels because, as this gentleman has said, it's a very sophisticated threat actor environment out there, and we cannot afford to miss.
Right. Chris, I know you want to jump in, given this is your terrain, right?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in, and I think the only thing I like better than talking about the Kev catalog is someone else talking about the Kev catalog, so appreciate that. So for those who aren't super familiar with the Kev catalog, this is our way that we prioritize known exploited vulnerabilities for patching. We think it is the most important factor for prioritization of vulnerabilities. I do want to touch a little bit more on the broader vulnerability ecosystem. So CISA is the sponsor of the CVE program, the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposure Program. We've been managing that program for quite a while now. We are really invested in this program, and we've done a lot of work to date to really grow this program. We've federated the program out from 24 CNAs, these are the numbering authorities for the program, to over 460 CNAs over the last 8 years. And with that, the number of vulnerabilities that have been published has increased to over 40,000 last year. And so for any organization to try to track and patch, against 40,000 different vulnerabilities within their IT ecosystem is a very complex challenge. We have to do a lot more with automation, and I think that's where maybe AI can come in and help with some of the automation pieces. But for us, the Kev catalog is really a great way for us to help different stakeholders really prioritize the patching of those most important vulnerabilities. And in the federal space, we've had great results with over 99% of the KEVs that are internet-facing being patched quickly by our federal agencies. So that's been really a great tool for us. And so we will continue to invest in both the CVE program, and we have a lot of good work happening there to make huge improvements to that program, especially on the now shifting from growing to the program to shifting to more automation, innovation, and increasing the quality of the data going into that program.
Do you see the Kev incorporating a lot more of the vulnerabilities that applies to like the AI, either with LLM platforms or those type of capabilities as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think so I think to start with, AI systems are software systems. So we see a lot of vulnerabilities in AI systems that are just general software vulnerabilities. So those vulnerabilities will absolutely get added to the Kev. The trickier part is things around models and things like that. And we are working very closely with AI companies and such to make sure that we are tracking those vulnerabilities and figuring out how best to increase the automation and mitigation of those vulnerabilities.
Much of the discussion we've had so far has been, I would say, stated in what has been affectionately known as CISA 2015 or the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015. That was a key legislative initiative that really focused on enhancing federal government and non-federal entity relationships, the collaboration between the two. So think private industry, state and local, territories, and private companies, et cetera. Chris, if you want to tackle this as well, can you provide an update on its effectiveness? Because it's been about 10 years. What's the latest on that act?
Yeah, so the CISA 2015 is one of our most important pieces of legislation. We're very thankful for Congress that have given us this authorization. And we're very hopeful that it gets reauthorized, starting with the markup yesterday. I've been around CISA for 11 years now, so I was there prior to CISA 2015, and I've really seen the huge increase in sharing from especially our industry partners since that legislation has passed. I think for us, we are really the center point, and this legislation provides us that unique authority to be the center point of information sharing, as no single company or no single entity has that full picture of what the threat is. And so every time we have a big campaign where we are tracking a cyber adversary, exploiting certain technologies, or using certain TTPs, we're able to get very quickly together with our industry partners, share that information in real time, and put it together with our other international governments to really try to provide out those unique insights of the entire threat picture. So for us, that is a foundational authority for us, and we're really hopeful that it gets reauthorized.
And I'll just jump in. Number one, it's CISA, not CISA. Don't get those two confused. They're spelled the same. Don't even worry about that. So one of the challenges that exists is that we had a world where the federal government stepped in and said, okay, as folks get popped on a cyber side, we want to make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. So every time there's an incident, let's make sure we can share it. This is the core of this bill legislation. Right now what we're seeing is it's going to likely get a clean reauthorization before it expires, but it hasn't happened yet. So we're running right up to that wire, as all things on the Hill seem to do. But we are hopeful that it comes across. One of the things we want to make sure of is we don't lose these sharing pipelines that we built over the last decade that we're used to, like, hey, my neighbor over here got hit, I don't want my house to get hit. As we get into the world where we don't have to rely on someone else getting an incident and that we can start to generate additional CTI data that can be shared at speed, we need these foundational pipelines to stay. So the good news is that point has been made on the Hill pretty clearly, both of the value to the customers and the CISA about this, and the industry is all behind it. The challenge we had is just anything that has the word liability protection in it kind of gets a wince on the Hill. So we're working to make sure that's in the right place, and we think that the committees of jurisdiction are really doing a good job in making sure that gets across the finish line, we hope.
You know, when I worked for General Nakasone, one of the things he would state is that the state and local and the tribal organizations out there are really our canary in the coal mine when it comes to national security. So I would echo your thoughts. I think the CISA 2015 was foundational in that sense. I do look forward to seeing how it evolves over the course of the next 10 years. So that's important, I think, to keep going in terms of the legislative processes. Is there anything from a CISA 2015 that you think, given the last 10 years, is a limitation or something that could be improved upon when it comes to the collaboration? Like what's missing that would make a big difference?
I'll jump on that one. The big challenge that we see is investment. You have people that are saying, okay, I want to receive all these feeds, but the investment to be actionable is really where we want things to work. The good news is that the language of CISA 2015 doesn't prohibit that action or that investment. It just doesn't outline that one should make those investments and how action should be taken. So there's not really a need to adapt the language as much as there's a need to adapt the usability of the information that's being shared. So as these types of legislation comes across, it's an opportunity for us as cyber workers to come in and say, this is where we can really take this and springboard from it. We don't candidly expect another 10 years out of the Hill. We're probably going to have a much shorter runway to kind of make our case with some legislators that really didn't have full confidence in this moving forward. So we're going to have to be pretty loud once it's reapproved about how it can be leveraged in new and innovative ways.
It sounds like it's easy to put the legislation out there. It's harder. It's really the onus is on us, either industry, state, local, et cetera, to actually take it on and actually utilize it to its full potential, take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I think, you said canary in a coal mine. We say, one entity's detection is another's prevention. I think we want to continue to get, more people sharing information with us. We've had a huge uptick since 2015, and so we want to continue that growth of people calling us and letting us know about their cyber incidents. So again, we can try to synthesize that information and find useful information to share back with the community. So I think that's really what we're going to continue to focus on is more engagement with industry, with our critical infrastructure to get those cyber incident reporting with CISA.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ryan, you've touched previously in the first question about your collaboration with CISA. You highlighted that. As all of us know here and also in the room, reinforcing cyber hygiene is really foundational to our cyber defense. I spent a lot of time at Tanium really focused on real-time cyber hygiene with our customers. We have a saying that is probably heard amongst you guys as well, is you can't defend what you don't know and you don't know what you can't see. How is the Department of Commerce getting, quote, back to the basics?
So I think you have to start with, the reality, right? The Department of Commerce historically has been a very federated, department, right, with 13 different operating units operating independently. That's just not sustainable, nor is it acceptable. I think cybersecurity is team sport. I think you have to take a one commerce approach. And in the spirit of sharing information, once it's shared, you shouldn't penalize someone. You should applaud them. The extent to which you penalize, they're going to want to hide things. And what you want to know are, where are the problems so that I can help you shore them up and ultimately protect our mission. I think getting back to the basics is key, but I think you also have to have a barbell personality. There's a lot of fascinating technology that's being leveraged by threat actors to try to compromise our systems and networks. We need to be up on that. We need to be, privy to what that entails. At the same token, we cannot just chase the shiny and lose sight of the basics, the patching, right, the remediating vulnerabilities, making sure that our systems are, in good stead. So I think that barbell personality coupled with partnerships with folks like CISA and others in industry and partnerships with your customers, your OUs within a department, that goes a long way. Ultimately, it boils down to trust. If folks don't trust you, they're not going to want to share with you. Folks are not going to want to tell you what's going on within their environment. I think the last thing I'll leave you with, Sam, is making sure that you have a balanced tool set. It's easy to pull your eggs into one basket, but few would argue the problems that will occur if that happens, when that happens, should you be compromised. At the other end of the spectrum, you can't just have an unlimited set of tools. So my job is to make sure that we have a balance, leveraging the department's limited funding, making sure we have the best, most robust cybersecurity posture we can possibly have.
Yeah, and if I could just jump into, we're talking about cyber situational awareness, and Department of Commerce is one of our best partners here in sharing that cyber situational awareness with us. So CISA has a few different programs where we try to bring visibility back to CISA so we can apply another layer of threat detection for the federal agencies. That's done through our CDM program, our Continuous Diagnostics and Mitigation Program. We provide both asset management tools as well as EDR tools to the federal agencies, and Department of Commerce is one of our biggest partners there that have enrolled in our persistent access capability that allows CISA to hunt across their systems as we become aware of threats in real time. And going back to the sharing information with CISA, this is how we action that information that people share with us. We search our holdings, we try to find threat actors across the federal government, and then if we find something in the federal government, we share it back out across critical infrastructure and industry. So it's this harmonious loop. And we have several other visibility programs as well. Our Common Log Access Warehouse, where the Department of Commerce is sending us some of their cloud logs, their SaaS logs, and I encourage all organizations to be trying to bring together that full visibility picture across the host level, the network level, and the cloud level and SaaS level to bring those logs together. And we have certain programs that the federal agencies can bring that visibility back to CISA to apply that other layer of defense on top of that.
And one of the things we found in working with all of our customers and friends across the federal government is that everyone got really good at compliance pretty quickly. Like making sure they have the right control families in place, making sure they have the right connections to the right agencies so that their software would work as intended. What we've learned is that you can actually take those models and those functions that they didn't put in place for compliance and start to add automation and dynamic scoring so that when someone looks at their scorecard, they actually see the 5 vulnerabilities that they've got dynamically live in their network right now with instructions on how to fix. And oh, by the way, if you fix it, this is what your new score is. And that actually gives a lot of momentum to those who candidly didn't know what the top 5 things they could do to impact what they're being scored on were. And so those types of platforms that scale across a lot of our networks allow us to really be that benefit arm where automation comes into play. So that if people say, are you using AI in automation? Absolutely. And I have a dynamic score that can show it right now. And so that's been very helpful as well.
I think one of the things there that I would pull the thread on a little bit is, say, the scoring part of it. A lot of times what we're seeing is, look across industry, every industry vendor out there has their own ability to score things in different ways. This is maybe a challenge back to CISA is maybe there's a better way to actually normalize a score. I know that DoD uses CMRS. They use, products to actually that were tied to vendors in the past. Is there a way to come up with a normalized score that wouldn't rely on any particular vendor, but something else within the organization that every organization has, whether it's the cyber defensive tools, whether it's their posture with zero trust? That type of scoring system might be useful for a cross-industry type perspective.
Yeah, so I don't think we can get our, win the cyber defense wars with just compliance. I do think that there's a lot of starting points with compliance that are useful. Again, going back to the KEV, we think that is like the first thing that we would ask people to focus on. But I think the other thing to highlight as we talk more about cyber hygiene and the basics, we published something called the Cyber Performance Goals, the CPGs, which is really this foundational baseline set of protections that we think every small, medium, large businesses should have implemented across critical infrastructure. And so we've tried to point people to that as the foundational starting point where you should be getting this minimum set of requirements in place. Rather than just focusing on your normal kind of compliance type of exercises. So that's something that we continue to invest in that and continue to update those performance goals and have a lot of work going on there. So that's one of the things that we try to point people towards.
Well, we're going to wrap up in a second, but I want to ask one rapid fire question at the end. Couple word answer is all we really need. We're not going to pull the thread on it. We're really just going to ask each one of you, what of all the things that we've talked about, what would you say is the most concerning to you right now? We'll start at you at the end, Chris.
Ooh, most concerning. I mean, I think one thing I would like to talk about is shifting more towards resilience. So I think one of the things that we don't do enough is we do a lot of work in detection. We do a lot of work in prevention. We want to have people start thinking more about resilience. So we used to talk a lot about assume breach. You should be assuming that your organization will get hit, and how can you actually respond when you get hit and recover from an incident. So making sure that you're running exercises, you're testing your systems on how you can run your systems without access to the internet or access to other critical mission systems and keep your organization running.
Awesome.
Yeah, I double tap on the exercises. We do that a lot with CISA and within the Department of Commerce. Things are going to happen. Things have already happened, quite frankly. So the extent to which you can, leverage your playbooks and put them into play instantly is incredible. Concerning for me, supply chain and cloud service providers. I think a supply chain threat actor is always looking for the weakest link. Cloud service providers, we're all using them. If they can get to them, we're done. So I think those are the things that concern me.
Mission-focused OT. So we're trying to make sure that we have a future KEV list for OT. We're trying to make sure that when we talk about operational technology, because in a contested environment, that does lead to disruption. And so resilience takes on a different meaning. And so when we look at it, we're looking at the OT space.
Awesome. Let's give a big round of applause for these gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.